All right. We got our food. I think we can give us a quick start. What I'll do is I had a presentation on the 7 essential rules for influencer marketing, and what I'll do is temper it to kind of give a view on what agencies look for and what brands are looking for, and then temper it more towards the creator sector. I think everyone mostly in this room is a creator, correct? Yeah, except for Sam, who's just the man. Sam the man. This is fun. Okay. For the one person in the room who probably does not know me, I'm Mike Prasad. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tiny Sponsor, we're an influencer marketplace. And for everybody else, good to see you. So, I'm going to go through really quickly the 7 essential rules for influencer marketing. This is a white paper which is actually designed for agencies, but I think it's useful to know as a creator to understand what agencies are looking for and how they approach the buy. So I'll go through that, and then we can have a little open discussion. And then if we're really lucky, maybe RKVC can sing us a song. I mean, it's almost tradition at this point. All right, so global spending on influencer marketing is growing like crazy. This number is 5 to 10 billion by 2022, but if you actually, by our own research, if you actually look at the what we consider influencer marketing, which is more content sponsorship in the digital realm, it's actually more than double that. So the spending in the space is actually growing incredibly, and that's really a US number. If you look at global numbers are actually even higher. The reason behind this is that user-generated content has way more engagement for a brand than the brand's own content. So it makes sense, right? If your friend's talking about how great a brand is, or some product experience they just had, you're going to engage with that and you're going to be excited by it. Versus if a brand goes like, oh, we have the best thing ever, you're like, that's cool, but you're the brand. So the idea is that by enabling and engaging customers for brands, those customers actually have way more value than anything the brand can say themselves. Further, what you find in social media especially is that when you discuss a brand as a consumer or creator, you don't actually follow the brand, you just discuss them. So your friends will mention it, you might see some of their products, you might look at an experience that someone's engaging with, but you're not actually following the brand account. Like most people follow a very small percentage of brand accounts compared to the brands they interact with. So the mistake that I think a lot of brands make when they go do influencer marketing is they automatically say, oh, I want to do Instagram, and that's influencer marketing. And the world of influencer marketing is not just Instagram, as we all know here. We RKVC, they're on like 7 different platforms. And the idea is that each platform has its different characteristics and different goals. And so as a creator, it's also good to know which of those goals, or which of those platforms you're on, the one that you're focused on, how do they serve a brand? What is the specific purpose or the specific value that that platform uniquely is situated for? So what I mean by that is, this is a really big chart, and if you want to grab a white paper on the front table, there's a booklet that has the full version of this. But every format has a very different mechanism that does or does not do something. So for example, if you're looking at a Instagram story, they're really, really great for click-through links. So you can put link in bio, and you can go ahead and link below, and on your stories you can actually activate someone, engage them in the content, and then they can click through. And so for a direct action of driving a sale or a click-through, Instagram stories are really, really good. But for the same outcome, but for if you're looking for that sale, an Instagram feed post is actually not really good. An Instagram feed post has no follow-through. The most it can do is go to your profile. And if your profile is set up as a brand, then maybe it will click through, but it's still multiple steps away, which cuts down the conversion rate. What an Instagram feed post is really, really good for, though, is selling the narrative, educating, it's building brand awareness and telling a story. And so every format has different functionalities and different metrics and different outcomes. And so for the platforms that you're on as a creator, you want to know what is actually the highest value mechanism on the platform that you're on. So TikTok, for example, is very different than LinkedIn. And audiences are different too, right? So you skew older on Facebook, mid-range on Instagram, younger on TikTok, for example. So by knowing that, you can actually price your offerings as a creator accordingly. And also when you're talking to brands, you're able to clearly identify what your key value is around their goals. Now, brands typically have 4 to 5 goals that are incorporated into any marketing campaign. And there are subtypes to this, but they really fall into 4 core categories and maybe one additional. So the first goal is telling a story and building awareness, letting people know what the brand is about, what they do, who they are, what their products are, but the reasoning behind it. It's not about trying to make you buy at that moment. Coca-Cola is a really good example. You're not going to buy Coca-Cola online. You're going to go to a grocery store or buy it at a restaurant or some other of the million places you can buy it, but they want to keep you top of mind. They want to tell you what you're about. And the holidays, they had their famous polar bear campaign. They wanted to associate themselves with the holidays and celebration. And so the awareness and storytelling and narrative is exactly what that goal is about. Now the other type of goal is building on, this is specifically digital audiences, is building direct audience and followers. So saying, like for example, right now I manage campaigns for Facebook, and Facebook has a very specific goal of building audience in certain categories. And so they want to build an audience on platforms. So if I have a brand that's working with user creator and you're saying, okay, we want to build more followers, that would be that type of goal. And that could be more followers, more subs. The same thing the creators look for when they're trying to build audience. They want more direct audience. It could also be a newsletter sign up. Now the third type of outcome or goal is going to be driving an action or a click-through. And that's what we talked about earlier, which is a direct sale. And that's where you really generally need some measurable way to track that outcome. And so a link would be the easiest way. An offer code could be another way. If the content has an integrated buy process, so something like the tap to buy on Instagram, that would also work. LinkedIn, it could be a link in the article that closed through. On YouTube, it will be similar. And so those are all very trackable, attributable conversions. So what brands often run into is that with content marketing and social media, if there's no link or code used, they can see an increase in sales, but they can't attribute it. They don't know who it's coming from. And that makes it harder for them to prove ROI internally, and then harder for them to assign a bigger budget, which is why you'll see a lot of people saying, well, I'll pay you on an affiliate basis. I'll pay you on a sales basis. And while that's fine for them, it actually is not ideal for an influencer or a creator because someone might see your ad but not actually convert until later on. And you contributed to that conversion, but you're not going to get credit for it. Which is why one of the reasons why Tiny Sponsors, it's a flat rate basis, and you can pay out additional affiliate, but there's still an upfront fee because there's content creation, there's audience engagement, there's other value that is inherent to what you're doing beyond just the conversion. Influencer marketing and content marketing is a hybrid format. It's not pure performance. You're not just paying per click. It's not pure value of creating content. You're not getting just the value of the creative or someone creating a cool video or putting your photo, doing a photo shoot. It's a mixture of all these things, and you need to account for those values. So once the brand's really figured out what platform they should be on and why they're there, we're talking about metrics. You need to be able to track that, right? So how are they going to measure those things? Click-throughs are the easiest. Audience with engagement is a big metric. Now, the problem with a lot of these metrics is that they're abstracted, they're secondary metrics. So for example, I look at engagement, and most people look at engagement as a percentage of, on Instagram as an example, or on, let's say on Twitter or on YouTube, it's how many likes and comments did it get divided by the total number of followers divided by likes and comments. And so you get a percentage, you get engagement rate. It was a common format. The problem with that is that it's a soft metric. You don't actually know what the nature of engagement was. You don't know who that person engaging was. You don't know if it was a bot, if it was a pod, or if it was a real true engagement. And so if you look at all KPIs and brand objectives and how to measure it, there's hard metrics and soft metrics. A hard metric would be a attributable sale through a click-through or through a code. A soft metric would be engagement. Whenever you present soft metrics to brands, you have to give context, otherwise the brand or whoever they have to report to won't always understand the value. So if you're saying, I as a creator provide really great engagement in this category, that's great, but even better is in this category around this nature and have examples of that engagement. So for example, if we did a campaign with our KVC on a coconut water energy drink, and in that report we provided photos of the comments, of the key comments, of the post itself, of the narrative and how they presented it, but also how people reacted to it, and the key quotes from the comments. This helps the brand understand what the nature of the engagement is, because engagement is a soft metric, and if you can't give them measurable or qualifiable details, it's harder to determine the value. Every metric will be different for every brand, depending on their goals, and it may be a mixture. You want to avoid vanity metrics, how many just followers you have, because followers is not indicative of true reach. True reach is actually how many accounts saw your content. So these are things that you want to keep in mind. As a creator, as we get to a more sophisticated stage in content marketing and influencer marketing, brands are becoming more aware of the differences, and they're trying to optimize to have the best outcome. What you don't want is sell on vanity metrics to the wrong brand and have a bad outcome, because then it looks bad on you, it looks bad on them, and it actually hurts the overall space. So when we talk to brands, we always tell them every creator has a unique voice, focus, and style. It's essential to find the right creator to work with. You could have the same, you and I can have the exact same audience, the exact same vertical, the exact same amount of posts per month, the exact same engagement numbers. And for one brand, one of us could outperform and the other one could fail. And the reason why is that what determines outcome and goals and conversion is not the metrics. The metrics are a baseline. What actually determines the outcome is the qualitative metrics, not the quantitative ones. So does my content have the same style, voice, brand, values as the product that I'm advertising? Does it integrate naturally into my regular content feed, or is it something that's clearly different from my regular content? The more aligned the brand is and their product and their value set and their messaging with my value set and my messaging, and the more aligned it is with my audience, the higher conversion rate you're going to have. And you can see a difference by a multiple. So in a scenario where all that's well aligned, you might see a 10x conversion rate than when it's not well aligned. And at that point, it's the same money for all parties involved. And in that scenario, it typically, the high alignment sponsorships are good for the influencer or the creator. They're also good for the brand. The audience does not feel like they're selling out. The audience feels like they're sharing something that is really of true value to them with the people they care about. So the best brands, ultimately, a brand is like a prototype culture, if you think about it that way. Culture is defined as, at least for me, generic elements that come together to create a unique meaning or situation or context. So a really simple example that is like the food you're eating, right? So, bread, flour, meat, and vegetables in one assembly can be Italian, another one can be American, and so a sandwich can have really different connotations and cultural values, but the elements are actually exactly the same. So if you think about it from a brand point of view, is saying, we care about these things, we have these things, elements about who we are. If you're a creator, it's the same thing. What defines you? Like RKVC, again, because they're my universal example, is wearing a black and red vest that they always wear. If they're not wearing the vest, they're wearing a t-shirt with the print on it. So they're a known brand, they have a personality that comes through and is consistent across all the things they do. And all their content is split up into 3 to 4 categories: music, gaming, and a lot of kind of social, fun stuff around being a creator. So lifestyle. Slice of life, I guess, would be more appropriate. So you have these 3 categories that they're known for, and so within those categories, they're going to be highly effective, regardless of what their follower count is. And as they've done that, they've created people around them that create a culture. There's a certain culture of other creators that co-create with them, and that creates a very distinct group of people. Every creator has their own distinct culture that they create. Every brand is trying to build culture. So when we talk to brands, we always say work with multiple creators. Don't work with one. Work with a number of creators that have similar value sets and similar aesthetic and similar context, so you're actually adopting those values into your brand and you're actually creating community through that engagement. Pricing is a big one. I've seen PR companies pay 10 times the media value of a creator. I've seen performance companies try to pay a creator 1/10 of their value. There's no hard metric other than conversion, and conversion is situational, meaning for one brand it might be great, for another brand it might not be great. So the pricing metric is all over the place. When you're looking at pricing as a brand or a creator, you want to think about the values that you're presenting. Based on the content you create and kind of the formats I talked about earlier, each format has a different value set. So if you're doing a lot of, Anais does amazing photography, that has an initial value in and of itself, regardless of distribution. And she can offer that as a licensing right for the brand to reuse for an additional fee. So that goes in, that's one aspect of presence, the creative, the work, the hours that goes into creating that photo or that video, versus just, hey guys, check this out. That's not as much of a value as someone actually composing and thinking creatively about the content. Another type of value is distribution. How many people do you actually engage with? How many people see that content? Similar to how many times an ad gets viewed on a banner ad or on a commercial. They charge by that amount. And then the third type of conversion is going to be the sales. There's also other values, secondary value, like data, being able to test audiences, getting feedback for how certain micro audiences engage with the brand's content. That might have secondary value. Most brands, it's not their primary value. But a lot of brands will incorporate that into their value proposition. So when you're presenting yourself to a brand, you got to think about what other areas of value do you have. It's going to be your creative value, and that's what the hours you put in. It's going to be your audience size and your media value. How much is that exposure worth? And then your engagement and your conversion value. How much do you think you'll actually convert for a specific area? And then the last part is expertise. Are you someone who's known as an expert in the thing? Are you lending that endorsement? And that's another value. So if I have the top doctor in the world talking about smoking and saying that a certain product is safe, then that's going to have a ton of value versus some random guy in the street saying that. So you got to think about where you're positioned within your own industry. That's what's so important for creators to build up their own reputation and their own experience. More than just, look at me, I have a really cool, crazy lifestyle. You have to be known for something. The more you are known and trusted for that, the higher value you are to everyone involved. I should note there's a calculator for Instagram, tinysponsor.com/calculator. It will calculate your media value. Your media value is what it would cost for similar engagement if the brand had bought Facebook ads or Instagram ads. Never charge below that. You can definitely charge above that. So one thing that like creators and brands tend to overlook, unless you're a really big brand, is brand safety. It's something that a lot of creators aren't aware of, which says in your content as a creator, what are the things that you associate with? Are any of those things considered risque? That could be smoking, it could be alcohol, it could be cannabis, it could be more explicit content, it could be vulgarity, it could be religion, politics. These are all things that certain brands have to avoid by policy because it's too toxic to them. And conversely, there are other brands that want that. So if you're a cannabis brand, you're like, yes, show me all the people that talk about cannabis. But you need to be aware as a creator which of the 7 or 8 categories of those brand safety areas that you fall into, if any. And if you're not, you want to say, I'm completely brand safe. That's a great thing for a lot of consumer brands. P&G brands love that. Consumer goods brands like Procter & Gamble love that because they'll pay double the money for that if they have an assurance of brand safety. So one thing you can always do when you present yourself as a creator is know what you're brand safe for and be able to be confident and present that because brands will pay more based on that. FTC compliance, so they just actually updated this. In 2017, FTC published guidance on what influencers and content had to disclose and tag, so hashtag sponsored is an example of that, on their content. Now, they just updated this like about 2 weeks ago, and they clarified on who's responsible, because the idea was that, yes, you have to do it, but it's a guideline, but then enforcement's a different story. So what they came out to is that the brand is responsible for communicating the rules to their creator, to the who they're sponsoring, and say you must use this tag, you must disclose them this way. It's their goal, and the Tiny Sponsor we actually is incorporated into our feed where you'll see that whenever you get a job. But they decided, and this is what's new, is that it's ultimately the responsibility of the influencer or creator to disclose, meaning if they wanted to enforce that, they would go after the creator first and say, hey, you posted this, you did not disclose, you're now going to be fined or have a penalty. So this is different than before where it was more so on the brand side. Now they're saying the brand has to communicate it, but the creator has to actually be responsible for doing it. And so if you're a creator and you're not disclosing, before it was like a slap on the wrist, kind of like, oh, you should have done that, but now they've laid the groundwork that if they wanted to fine you, they could. So those are kind of like the fundamentals of how brands should approach influencer marketing. Tiny Sponsor, all of these things I talked about are incorporated into our flow. As a creator, when you create your profiles, we'll ask you about brand safety. It's all multiple choice. Deliverables are automatically structured based on goals and all other cool, fun stuff. We support all platforms, and it's something that if you're not on, I think everyone mostly here is on it. Definitely could check it out. Even if you don't use us, you should go, I would advise going through it and understanding what the pieces are, because when you're presenting on your own, a lot of creators will be on our platform. They'll also have an agent or a manager. They'll also do direct pitches. We're not exclusive. But the things that are in the profile, your audience, your demographic, your style, your brand safety tags, your explicit deliverables, your explicit pricing, your packaging, For example, saying, I don't just do a post, but I actually will do 4 stories and 1 feed post, or I'll do a YouTube video with integration, or I'll do a shout out to YouTube, which is a very different price point. These are all things you need to present to a brand to make sure it becomes actionable to them for them to purchase. And as a brand, they should be looking for an understanding what these things are for it to be effective for them as well. So I would advise taking a look and understanding at least the mechanics of it. So when you're pitching on your one sheet or your press kit, you include some of those elements because they're going to help you get more sponsorships. Thank you for that. We actually have I think 5-10 minutes left. So we can do questions, or RKBC can sing us a song. Or, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so they've just published updates, but basically it's hashtag sponsored, or if, whenever possible, use the approved partnership tool. And Instagram has that, Facebook has that, where when you're posting a story, you can say, you can assign the partnership option and tag the brand through that. Then you don't need to do the hashtag sponsored. And the advantage of that is that the brand can then get all the metrics from your post, and they don't need to ask you for it when you've used that partnership tool. And 2, the other advantage is that they could boost it, which is good for you and good for them because they're paying for the boost, but you're getting all the followers. So we definitely encourage that whenever possible. And something that not all brands know they can do. So I would also say, hey, if you're a brand and you're sponsoring me, I'm open to boosting. I can tag you in the sponsor and you'll full access to the metrics and the boosting. And it's a win-win for everybody.
How much do you tell a partner or a brand to boost to be able to?
It's up to them. I generally recommend 20% of spend. So if you're saying my package costs $1,000, they should boost it $200. And the best practice that we've seen is boosting 2 to 4 days after the post goes up on a feed post, because the idea is that you're building an organic audience, and that's natural, highly targeted, high engagement audience that came to that post and engaged with it for the reasons that are validated by your content. It's the right audience, right? They've naturally engaged with it. And if you've done that, then when you do the boost, the algorithm will use as a lookalike audience and find more people like them. So it actually brings in more relevance. What you don't want to do is boost right at the post, because then there's no data for it to know how to target. So you'll just start spamming it out to all of your audience and see what hits. And then you actually get a lower conversion rate and a lower engagement rate because you're actually there's not enough data to know what the right audience is. But you give it a couple days till the natural organic post engagement dies off, then you boost it. That's the best combination. And then you can do it for yourself as well if you wanted to boost your own post to kind of build a specific audience. If you have a really high performing post that has a highly engaged, good comments, good engagement, that's really specific to the core audience that you want to engage with, if you boost that a little bit, you'll be able to get more followers that are like that audience. Any other, yeah?
Number 6, we talk about brand safety. What are the kind of red flags again for brand safety?
Yeah, I can rattle it off my head, but let me just pull them up just to be 100% sure I'm not forgetting one.
It changes every year too.
Yeah, it changes every year. We update it accordingly, but there's always a core set. So let me go to. So alcohol, cannabis, explicit or sexualized content, suggestive content, politics, religion, strong language, or none if you don't have any of that. Yeah.
So it seems like Instagram is getting more and more sexy. I mean, every girl has a bikini photo, right? Would you consider that sexually explicit if you're
Suggestive would be the.
and they want to stay away from that?
A lot of brands will, yeah.
But I mean, it's almost like a contest nowadays. I mean, who has the best bikini? It's just crazy. So it's like if you don't post any kind of like nice, kind of sexy bikini photo, it's a tough call.
It's an audience training thing. So Instagram will look at the audience that engages with you, and it'll give you more people like that audience. So for example, Sarah on the internet is one of our colleagues. She has a couple earlier videos in her career that were more suggestive, that built an audience that way. And so even now, when all of her content is very like makeup, fashion driven, not at all suggestive, even though that's the majority of content for years, she still gets the algorithm pushing her people that followed her for other reasons. And as a result, she's had to police her and ban people actively to get her audience away from being completely male. Because from a brand point of view, that's worthless audience for most brands that are working with her. Because she's working with makeup brands and fashion brands for women. So her women audience is actually where the conversion happens. And so she's got it down to about, I think, 79-ish% male from like 90+% male. But it's a hard thing to do once you've already established that audience. So a lot of your content will determine that. What we found with accounts that are not as suggestive, that are maybe more fun or more around, it takes longer to build the initial audience, but that audience will then become very, very valuable and have a higher value per follower than the suggestive audiences. It's very similar to like, call reality TV shows versus mainstream shows. One is kind of like a lower value, but a broader audience, and one's a higher value, specific audience. Same idea. So our content will curate your audience that way.
So unless you had a product like, let's say, landscaping, where men would actually purchase it, men are worthless, is what you're saying?
I mean, to that specific brand. Now, like, there might be categories where there's an item that applies to both parties that can be followed by, will engage with the audience following someone for sexy photos. But that's a very specific type of product, and that doesn't always fit with the creator or et cetera. So we had a bikini brand from the United Emirates that sponsored some very hot, attractive women on our platform. And then they were upset when there was no conversion, except that on their profile, there was like 98% male audience, and none of them were buying a bikini. So, that's the issue you run into. Now, there's other products that may be about like sexual health, awareness, other things that might translate, but it's going to limit that value for that account. So whenever I look at a brand, that's why pricing is tricky. When we take our approach to packages, we ask the creators not just to say like, oh, I'll do a post for X amount of dollars, but do something very, very specific. So like Jack Jerry.
Show her Sarah. She hasn't seen.
Oh yeah, Sarah.
I know, but show her.
Right. I'll do RKBC and Sarah since. So RKBC, they have Songs Explained, a single video. So you're sponsoring an existing video series they do. Or you can just do organic placement around a musician's Instagram post. So it's specific to music, right? And then they have like a pop duo thing. So they're very music driven. So all of their things aren't just like, we'll post about your product, but we'll do something very specific in a specific content is about who they are. To the right brand, that's really, really high value. And they can charge a lot more than an audience count because of it. And you want to present that way because otherwise your brand doesn't know who your audience is. So Sarah has fashion and style, makeup and beauty, but if you actually look at like the profile, you'll see keywords and little details around what she's focused on, who she's worked with, and some examples of what those posts look like.
But Sarah's prices are much higher than these guys here.
Well, Sarah also has about 200 times the followers that they do. So, again, media value, right? So there's a base, huh?
Limit yourself if you give a lower price and you're worth more. Limit you or what?
I would always have a slightly higher price because the brand can always come through and make a custom offer, and they'll base it on your previous price. So we used to definitely see brands say, hey, I want to work with Sarah, but $4,500 isn't really within our budget. They might come back and offer based on that. They might offer $3,000. And then depending on the brand, if it's a good fit or if it's an easy job or whatever, she might take it, and she has in the past. We've also had brands come to her and pay double her rate. Yeah, you guys should update your rates, for real. But like if you go to her profile, you can actually go make a custom offer. No, that's fine. We got like at least 7 more minutes. Oh, let me get this guy over here.
I was just curious, how do you, what's the way to get this to be more authentic and going forward? Since having people actually, one is posting yesterday, so that they're actually posting as an influencer products that they use, kind of pitching back to the brands. This is something that actually is useful out of the sport. So a program like this, like, makes it so that you can go out to tons of people and say, hey, would you be willing to enter into a sponsorship program? But it's kind of spur of the moment that they're thinking, oh, I kind of like that concept, maybe I'll do that sponsorship. But they weren't really using the product and they didn't actually necessarily go and use the product.
True. Yeah, so how do you create authenticity in sponsorships? And I think that goes back to, it starts with the creator actually, it doesn't start with the brand. I think a lot of times creators think that, oh, well the brand will tell us what to do and we'll figure it out, and you wait for offers, you're just pitching brands. But really it's kind of the way you should be saying, this is what I do, and then you should be telling the brand to do what you do. So by that I mean is specifically say what you're about or what your content's about. Again, using the RKVC example, they have a very specific implementation of brand integrations. And there are brands that when they get the deal, they'll turn down because it isn't the right fit for them. And I think you have, being a content creator influencer is like consulting, right? You can have 100 clients where every single client is amazing and it's a showcase and portfolio, and you can be like, I'm the best person. Or you can also have 100 clients that you can't talk to anyone about because it was crap, and you want to have the big hits. So when you're looking at brand collaborations, it's on the creator to say, this is what I do, this is what I'm about, and if this product fits that really well, it's something I would legitimately try, they should try it and then communicate that in their content. It should be a natural integration, whenever possible. Whenever a brand says, oh, I want you to post this, and they give you verbatim what to post, it's typically a bad deal, because they don't know anything about your audience, they don't know anything about what you're about or what your value set is, and that's actually bad for the creator because it kills their audience. It's also bad for the brand. It's low conversion. So I think there's a lot of people that will just throw stuff in their story because they get paid, and generally that has a very short shelf life, both for the brand, and their accounts tend to become less and less valuable over time. The ones that try and understand a product, even if it's a new product. So I'll give you a really specific example. One of our influencers, it's a sexual health product. It's an alternative to a tampon. They'd never used that before. It's a reusable, environmentally friendly, all values that this creator cares about. And she tried it out, and she gave it a shot, and actually ended up liking it, and she talked about her experience, and also the pros and cons of it. But as a result, her audience, which is mostly female, engaged really heavily with that product and the idea of it as a new alternative, a more environmentally friendly alternative to tampons. And it converted really, 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 really well, because she gave it a shot, and she could have also said, hey, it's not right for me, but it might be right for someone else. So there's ways to build in authenticity into your content as long as you've actually approached it in a manner that focuses on your own experience with that product and contextualize it. And also, you can also say, hey, this is what it's about. And you can also say, if it's something you don't really like, you can also say, hey, this is the experience I had, this is what I think it's good for, and you just exclude that it's not good for you, but it is good for a certain situation, because every product generally has a good situation. That said, if it's a knockoff or a bad product, then don't take the job. And brands, the problem that we found is that brands will always look at influencers generically. Oh, you're in beauty. Oh, you're in fashion. Oh, you're in tech. But that's actually the worst way to do it, because that could be tech around AR, VR. It could be tech around mobile gaming. It could be tech around like kids' toys. No one like it's that specificity is what makes it valuable. And if someone, for example, the number one account on YouTube earning is the unboxing of kids' toys, right? Like they're in family friendly. They're in retail goods. But you're not going to give them some food product. You're not going to give them some power tool or something to do. It's the wrong audience, right? And the reason why that connects so well is because there's authentic reactions to it, even though every single one is sponsored. So I think if you think about how do you integrate in a way that's really authentic that creates a natural reaction, and then you just temper that. You filter it. You say, okay, well, maybe I don't want to trash the brand, but maybe I do think it's good. Then you can build around that. There's different ways to do it. But I think it starts with the creator, and then also with the brand it starts with the brand understanding that they're not just creating their own content, that they're going to a creator for their own perspective versus just a dumb robot to spam it back out. Like that's what ads are for, right? I hope that answers the question. All right, so I guess we're at time. What do we have next?
The do and don'ts.
Do's and don'ts of influencer marketing? All right. So we have another panel coming up, which will actually dive into some of this on what to do and what not to do on both sides. And we'll talk about authenticity, which is a recurring topic that happens, I think, in almost any discussion on influencer marketing. So please stay. We'll have some panelists up here, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much.